Commend this bill for consideration at Select Committee. Thank you.
Dr. Ashraf Chair.
That was a very, very short speech, Mr. Alan Peachy. I thought it was going to take full 10 minutes. Anyway, he's going, it looks like. Mr. Speaker, I'm delighted to speak on this bill on a very short notice, actually. Didn't know I was supposed to be speaking, but as always, I'll be speaking. Don't you worry about it, Mr. Hone Haravira. Keep up the good work you're doing out there in the Maori Party. But Mr. Speaker, I want to go back a step in terms of the biosecurity needs of this country. Now, this country is agriculture country. We are dependent. Our income comes from agriculture. We're dependent on export of our agriculture products, whether it's meat or it's milk products, it's fruit, or vegetables, and we are dependent on for our income on exports. So we have to make sure, as have successive government over many, many years, ensured increasingly that we have to safeguard our borders. Whether stuff is coming in the airports or it's coming in the ships, we got to ensure that this island of ours is protected from all the nasties and pests and insects come into this country, because once these pests and insects get hold of, get established in New Zealand, then we have a real problem. And as you know, we have had similar kind of pests in the past which have come established in here. But we got to make sure, and this bill is one of those bills which is another effort in promoting biosecurity in some of the new airports, particularly in relation to cost recovery. I agree with the Minister that we got to make sure that the cost is recovered, and there got to be sharing of the cost between the government and the new airports, and that's important. Mr. Speaker, over the last 2 weeks in the Primary Production Select Committee, we've been hearing the submissions on the food bill. There's this food bill which has taken many years to come to fruition and come to the Parliament, and we've been hearing from a range of submitters, from importers, from exporters, from the city council, the district councils, and food manufacturers. And Mr. Speaker, one of the issues that I've been really asking questions, the submitters, we have very high standards of food in this country, but I've been really worried about some of the food which is being imported. And Mr. Speaker, it's only a couple of weeks ago that as you can appreciate, I'll buy some of the food from the some spices and stuff coming from overseas, and one of these sachets that I opened myself, I saw actually some insects inside this spice. It's awful, really, and that's what I've been saying in the Select Committee too, that we got to be very, very careful with all this food coming from, particularly from some of the developing countries, unfortunately, who haven't got these high standards that we have in this country, and we got to ensure that all the imports, whether it's vehicles or it's people coming in here or food coming in this country, we got to ensure that they all the nasties, all the pests and insects don't come here. And so this bill is another effort in terms of trying to ensure that we have a good biosecurity. At the airport, we have the dogs. We have trained dogs for this purpose. We have staff. But it's very sad. While this government is promoting these bills, but as my colleague from the Green Party said earlier, we last year the government pretty much sort of let 54 people go from the biosecurity. And this is not really acceptable. This is very short-term thinking, because if we can't ensure our border being secure from all these potential invasion of these insects and pests in this country, we're going to be very sad and sorry in the long term. So, Mr. Speaker, this bill ensures that we have the new airports, whether Rotorua or anywhere else, that there's appropriate measures are taken in terms of the security staff and the dogs to have these people over there. And in the meantime, we got to make sure that all these travelers and visitors to this country, that they make sure that these people do not bring any unacceptable stuff here. And it keeps happening. Unfortunately, we often see this program on the television, what it's called, border security or some border patrol, I think it's called. And it's fascinating to see some of these people bringing in stuff which is really unacceptable. And these people think, oh, well, they didn't know. They brought some apple and they brought some other food stuff here. Maybe sometimes they genuinely do not know the requirement in this country. But you see, just imagine, some of those fruit stuff coming here, seeds coming in this country, or even spices. As I said, I personally saw these insects grown in those sachets of food which has been brought here. And I was horrified, and I had to actually personally burn the damn thing to ensure that those things don't come here. At the same time, some of these foods which come here, they're outdated. And, are on the way, God knows how long they take to get here, and they develop some of these pests inside the food material. And the shops, particularly some of the dairy shops and small shops, ethnic shops, unfortunately, I have to say, they bring in stuff which is often not really acceptable. And to that extent, I have to say that the food security people, they need to be more vigilant, and they have to have more monitoring. I know in the end it's an issue of resources, while I understand that, but at the same time, some of this food which gets in here and then found that this food is not really acceptable in terms of biosecurity as well as for food safety point of view. Because this is a major issue for food safety for a lot of our people who consume the food coming from overseas. It's not so much what we are sending out, but what's coming into the country, which really concerns me. We have done over the years, my colleagues at Massey University in the past and the scientists, they have done a lot of work in terms of ensuring that the biosecurity steps, the research, backing of all this, what we're doing in terms of laws, in terms of the policies, that it is actually backed by proper science. And, over the years, I know Rokura has done a lot of good work in promoting the weed scientists over there and the pest and control people. They have done a lot of work in ensuring that we have a good border security, and also ensuring that we don't get any diseases and pests coming in here. Mr. Speaker, I got to say that we do support. I mean, some of these, of course, issues have been brought up. It's been brought up. Well, no, Mr. Speaker, this is a speech coming from the top of my head. All my work and research that I've done over the years that I've done is still up there. I have forgotten, even after 8 years, Mr. Speaker, I have forgotten all the agriculture work that I have done myself. So don't you worry, it's all up there. So, Mr. Speaker, because I'm personally aware some of this work over in agriculture, working in the pasture land, working in the crops, working with animals, I'm aware of that. Some of these chaps from towns coming from, they have no idea. Like my children, frankly, they have no idea, what we are talking about. But I know, like you, Mr. Speaker, yourself, we come from the farm. We have worked all our lives on the farm. We know what's required in this country. And agriculture is the basis of this, all our income, all our living standard that we have to date is all come from the farmers. The farmers of this country, and I've said it many times, and I know some of the farmers come from the rural area, they will appreciate this country is dependent on agriculture, and we have to protect our people from the diseases and insects coming into the country. It's just simply, there's no two way about it. We got to ensure that we don't get any of these insect pests coming to this country. Mr. Speaker, I know you want me to hurry up, but look, this is a subject I'm delighted about, and I'm pleased about supporting this bill. Although it's come from the government, but we started this bill. And I've got to remember that we've done a lot of work in this area to